Well, folks, today's monologue is very special indeed because it's been some 6 years in the making. Yes, 6 long years. Well, sort of. Here's the backstory. We shot a video way back in the summer of 2017, but it never aired, and I'll explain why in the moments ahead. But alas and alack, a rejected and forgotten video from some 6 years ago is suddenly very much relevant in 2023. I guess that's what happens in terms of significance with the passage of time.
There is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time.
Wow, and to think that cat is next in line to become the commander-in-chief should anything happen to the godfather of the Biden crime syndicate. Yikes. Speaking of cats, felines are indeed the crux of the matter for this monologue. You see, back in 2017, super producer Efren Monsanto and yours truly, we ventured out to the Canadian Pet Expo that was taking place at the International Centre in Mississauga, Ontario. The Pet Expo was hosting a cat show in which various kitties were vying for a championship trophy. Oh, to be clear, we had no intention of putting an actual feline on display, such as a Persian cat or an American Shorthair. Rather, I purchased a berth at the cat show to, showcase myself in the guise of my alter ego, Trans Cat. You see, back in 2017, transanity was in its infancy. Drag queen story time was just emerging at the local public library. And biological men, under the caveat of so-called human rights, were only beginning to invade female safe spaces such as change rooms and women's sports teams and women's prisons, all with the approval of Prime Minister Blackface. You know, diversity is our strength, even when it isn't. Anyway, the goal of our cat show safari was to gauge the acceptance level, not for transgender folk, but rather for trans species folk. So without further ado, let's run our 5-minute report that has lurked in the Rebel News vault until now. And on the other side of the video, I'll explain why it never did make it to air back in 2017 and why it is that we are finally airing it today. And please, parental guidance strongly suggested. In this day and age of inclusiveness and diversity, really, how accepting are we of the trans community? Oh no, folks, I don't mean transgender. That's so 2016. I mean trans species. Yes, there is a subset of people out there who do not identify as humans, but as a different animal altogether. Take the menzoid, for example. Sure, I might look like a member of Homo sapiens now, but on the weekend, I transform werewolf-like into my other persona of a fantastic feline. Yes, I'm now a cat. That's how I identify. And to celebrate my diversity as a newfound cat, I've entered into the National Cat Show here at the Pet Expo just to see how accepting people are of those who identify as trans species. No! For the record, this is an example of the lack of accommodation of trans species. We could not get my cage in through the front door, so we're walking all the way around. It's like 1.5 kilometers to the loading dock. You know, like I'm, a bunch of rubbish to be disposed of or something. We're going in through the tradesman's entrance. Anyways, we will comply, because I want that blue ribbon. Well, we've been locked out of 2, or was it 3 entrances, but you know what they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We found another way.
Bam! Which table do we have? Hi, how are you? Here we go. I'm a trans cat.
Yes, our name's on the table. The reservation name is written on the table over there.
And this is a cat?
This is a cat, trans. Yes.
Bullshit. I'm a trans cat.
Good. Trans cat.
Well, I'm a trans
Okay,
cat.
but just want to let you know, we did pay for
Well,
the table.
hey, why are you saying that?
Because you're speaking English.
Huh? That's why
Okay.
I'm transitioning into a cat.
You have to be removed off site right now.
Okay.
What about trans cat rights?
There's no such thing.
How dare you? I'll take you to the Human Rights Commission.
Oh, please do. That's human rights, not cat rights.
That's right. Meow. I'm here for the blue ribbon. This is an outrage.
Okay, maybe you got a chuckle out of that report. Maybe you were revolted. Maybe both. But you see, the video never aired back in 2017 because it was determined by the team that, well, it was just too weird. It was just too outrageous. Sure, the whole thing was a goof, but it seemed that this report belonged in an episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus, not on the Rebel News platform. So, you may ask, what happened in the meantime and why is this video finally premiering? Well, it's simple, folks. In just little over half a decade, the world has become exponentially crazier. In the hindsight of 2020, that video is not a prank. Rather, it turns out that we were simply way, way, way ahead of the curve. That's because the trans community is no longer all about men pretending to be women and vice versa. Rather, being trans these days is all about identifying as another species, from cats and dogs to horses and bears. Evidence abounds, with some people actually spending tens of thousands of dollars on a costume in order to look like a different critter. Golly, what would Sir Charles Darwin say if he were alive today?